The day the palace tested its promise. The palace woke slowly that morning, like a living memory stretching itself beneath golden sunrise light. Soft beams poured through towering glass windows, painting long ribbons of warmth across marble floors polished by generations of footsteps. Staff moved quietly through corridors, preparing for one of the most anticipated events of the summer season, the Royal Children's Charity Celebration.
Situation is dire.
For most
We're stacked
guests,
now.
it was a
Understood, sir.
prestigious
Agreed.
social
What are your
event.
orders?
For
Increase
Princess
patrols.
Charlotte,
Pull
it
back
was
at
something
dawn.
much simpler. It was a day she got to meet other children. And that mattered most. Charlotte adjusted the ribbon tied neatly in her hair as she walked beside her father through the east corridor.
This is
Her
the
shoes
best.
clicked softly, a tiny echo
Thank you for
following
that
them
warm
toward the
welcome.
grand
Together,
staircase.
we can make a profound
Papa,
difference.
she whispered, will the children from the hospital come today?
Ladies and gentlemen, we face
Prince
a critical
William
challenge
smiled
that
down
demands
at
our
her,
immediate and
not as
unified
a future
response.
king,
Together,
but as a
we will
father
overcome
watching
this.
his daughter try to make sense of the world. Yes, he said gently. And they're very excited to meet you. Charlotte nodded seriously. She didn't fully understand titles or press attention, but she understood what it felt like to be nervous
Thank you
meeting
all
new
so
people.
much.
And she never
Your
wanted
support
other
means
children
the
to feel
world.
alone. Outside, palace grounds shimmered with summer color. White tents lined the lawns like folded clouds. Tables carried delicate pastries and sandwiches. String musicians tuned instruments beneath flowering trees. Charity banners fluttered lightly in the breeze. Security teams stood at respectful distances, invisible but watchful. Among them stood Captain Elias Ward, Senior Royal Guard officer. 16 years of service. Hundreds of public events. 0 recorded failures. His reputation wasn't built on strength. It was built on attention. And something in his chest felt uneasy. Not fear. Instinct. Across the garden, another arrival passed through the gates. Lord Adrian Hale. A distant noble relative by marriage. Publicly respected. Privately, unpredictable. Once charming. Now increasingly bitter. He had grown up near royalty, but never truly inside it. And proximity to power sometimes creates admiration. Sometimes resentment. Today, it was resentment. Adrian stepped onto the lawn already tense. Not drunk. Not unstable. But emotionally volatile. He watched royal families laughing together. Watched staff bow slightly. Watched cameras follow every movement. And deep inside, an old wound whispered, "You will always be outside." Charlotte stepped into the garden holding her mother's hand. Catherine knelt briefly to adjust Charlotte's sleeve. "You look wonderful," she said softly. Charlotte smiled. Then she spotted a group of children near the rose garden. Her face lit up instantly. "May I go say hello?" Catherine nodded. 2 guards adjusted positions automatically, including Captain Ward. Charlotte approached slowly, not wanting to scare the younger children. "Hello," she said softly. "I'm Charlotte." One small girl stepped forward. "I know," she said shyly. Charlotte laughed gently. And just like that, titles disappeared. They were just children. From across the lawn, Adrian watched, and something inside him twisted. Why did everyone protect her? Why did everyone care? Why was kindness celebrated when he had spent years feeling invisible? He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he wanted someone to feel the frustration he carried. And sometimes, emotional storms don't announce themselves. They just arrive. Charlotte bent near the fountain to help a smaller boy toss fish food into the water. Behind her, Adrian walked closer, faster than normal. Not running, but purposeful. Captain Ward noticed immediately. Shift in posture. Focused movement. Eyes locked on one target. His body moved before his mind finished the thought. Charlotte turned, sensing someone standing too close. Adrian's voice came out sharp. "You think life is easy, don't you?" Charlotte blinked. Confused. Not afraid yet. Just confused. I don't understand," she said. Adrian reached out suddenly and grabbed her wrist. Not violently, but tightly. Too tightly. Charlotte gasped in shock. The other children stepped back immediately. Captain Ward crossed the distance in seconds. "Sir. Release her. Now." Voice calm. Firm. Unshakable. Adrian tightened his grip slightly. Not thinking. Just reacting. "Everyone protects her," he muttered. Ward stepped closer. One precise motion. Training perfected through years of controlled intervention. He gently but firmly broke the grip, repositioning Adrian's arm away while placing himself between him and Charlotte. Another guard immediately guided Charlotte backward. Charlotte's breathing turned shaky. Tears formed, not from pain. From shock. From confusion. Because adults were supposed to keep children safe. Adrian stepped forward again, angry now, but not fully in control of why. Ward shifted stance, defensive not aggressive. Sir, you need to step back. Prince William arrived seconds later. His voice calm, but carrying the weight of a father. That's enough. Something in Adrian cracked then. Not rage, but realization. Guards surrounded him, not violently, but firmly, and slowly escorted him away. Charlotte stood frozen. Then Catherine reached her. And Charlotte finally cried. The music stopped. Guests stood silent. Not out of fear. Out of respect. Because something sacred had just been protected. Inside the palace later, Charlotte sat wrapped in a blanket. Her arms showed light marks, nothing serious. But emotional moments leave deeper echoes. Captain Ward stood outside the family room afterward, filling out reports, but thinking about something else. The moment Charlotte had looked back at him after being moved to safety, and said quietly, "Thank you." He had protected many people, but somehow, that one mattered differently. Because protecting the future isn't just duty, it's legacy. Across the palace, Adrian sat alone in a quiet room. Not arrested, not harmed, but facing consequences. And for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not jealousy, but shame. And maybe, the beginning of change. That night, Charlotte asked one final question before sleep. "Papa, am I safe?" William kissed her forehead. Always. Outside her window, royal guards rotated shifts. Silent, alert, unseen, but unwavering. Because some promises aren't spoken publicly. They're lived. Every single day. When the world starts watching. The palace did not sleep that night. Not really. Lights remained on in offices that normally went dark after sunset. Security teams rotated more frequently. Communication staff spoke in hushed tones over encrypted lines. Because by morning, the world would know something had happened. And once the world started watching, every decision mattered. Princess Charlotte woke before sunrise. For a moment she didn't remember. Then she saw the soft medical wrap still around her wrist. And memory returned, not as sharp fear but as heavy confusion. Why would an adult be angry at her? She sat quietly, staring out the window as early morning mist floated over palace gardens. The fountain where everything happened was barely visible through the fog. There was a gentle knock. Catherine entered slowly, still in a robe, hair loosely tied. Not Princess of Wales now. Just Mom. "Did you sleep?" she asked softly. Charlotte nodded. Not fully true. But not fully false either. Catherine sat beside her. "You are safe," she said. Not as reassurance. As fact. Downstairs, crisis meetings had already begun. Prince William sat at the head of a long polished table. Around him, security command, legal advisors, public communications team, senior household staff, and Captain Elias Ward. Still in full uniform. Still composed. Even though inside he was replaying every second of yesterday. Searching for ways he could have prevented it earlier. Security commander spoke first. "We are increasing close-range presence around all royal children." Discreetly. No visible escalation. William nodded. Good. They must feel normal, but be safer than ever. Legal counsel followed. Lord Adrian Hale has voluntarily agreed to psychological evaluation and temporary withdrawal from all public events. William's jaw tightened slightly. Voluntary is good, he said. But everyone in the room understood. Voluntary sometimes means unavoidable. Communications director spoke next. The story has leaked in fragments. Social media speculation is growing. She slid a tablet across the table. Headlines forming already. Royal Garden event disrupted. Security incident at palace function. Unconfirmed reports involving noble guest. No names yet. But time was running out. William exhaled slowly. "We tell the truth," he said. "Without cruelty. Without humiliation. But with clarity. Because leadership sometimes means choosing honesty when silence would be easier." Meanwhile, Charlotte met with the palace child psychologist again. Dr. Foster didn't ask about the incident immediately. Instead, she placed drawing supplies on the table. "What do you want to draw today?" Charlotte thought for a long moment. Then drew. A garden. Children playing. And one tall figure standing nearby. Watching. Protecting. Dr. Foster smiled gently. "Who is that?" Charlotte looked down shyly. "The guard who helped me." Outside the room, Captain Ward stood by a window reviewing updated security layouts. A junior officer approached quietly. Sir. Princess Charlotte asked if you were okay. Ward blinked once, surprised, then nodded slowly. I am, he said. But his voice was softer than usual. Across the city, Lord Adrian Hale sat inside a private rehabilitation clinic. No press, no announcements, just silence, and long hours of reflection. He watched news updates with growing dread, not because he feared punishment, but because he finally understood what he had almost done. He hadn't attacked royalty. He had frightened a child. And that realization hurt more than consequences ever could. Back at the palace, the official statement went live at noon. Measured, clear, compassionate but firm. It confirmed. A security incident occurred. A young royal family member was briefly handled inappropriately but is safe. The individual responsible is cooperating with evaluation and treatment. Security protocols are being strengthened. No drama. No blame language. Just responsibility. Public response was immediate. Support messages flooded charity pages. Parents wrote letters. Children sent drawings. Many addressed simply to Princess Charlotte, stay strong. Charlotte saw some of them that evening. She read slowly, carefully, taking each message seriously. Why are they being kind to me? She asked Catherine. Catherine smiled softly. Because kindness spreads faster than fear. Later that week, Charlotte returned to school. Security increased, but invisible. Teachers were briefed quietly. Students were told nothing official. But children sensed things adults hide. One girl approached Charlotte at lunch. I'm glad you're okay, she said. Charlotte blinked, then smiled. Thank you. And just like that, life moved forward. Not unchanged, but stronger. Captain Ward returned to full-duty rotation. But something had shifted. He noticed children more carefully. Not just threats, but emotions, confidence, fear. Because protection isn't just physical. Sometimes it's presence. One afternoon, Charlotte passed him during a corridor walk. She stopped. Very formal. Very serious. Captain Ward. He straightened automatically. Yes, Your Highness. She hesitated, then said quietly, I'm glad you were there. Ward nodded once. Professional, but deeply moved. That night, William stood alone overlooking palace gardens. The fountain now repaired. Water flowing peacefully again. Catherine joined him silently. They'll grow stronger from this, she said. William nodded. I know. Pause. But I wish they didn't have to. Far away, Adrian sat in therapy, finally speaking honestly for the first time in years. About resentment, isolation, expectation, failure, and how anger grows when ignored too long. Part 2 wasn't about scandal. It was about consequence, about responsibility, about how moments of failure can become starting points for change. And inside the palace, life continued. Guards rotated. Children laughed. Staff worked. Music played again in the gardens. Because institutions survive not by pretending nothing happens, but by learning, protecting, and moving forward together. The weight behind the uniform. The palace gardens looked peaceful again. Too peaceful, some thought. Because places that hold history often learn how to hide the echoes of difficult days. Morning dew rested on rose petals. Birds returned to their normal routines. Staff prepared for upcoming events as if nothing had ever been interrupted. But inside certain people, things had changed forever. Captain Elias Ward stood at post 3 overlooking the east lawn. To anyone watching, he looked exactly the same. Straight posture, neutral expression, perfect stillness. But his mind was somewhere else. Not in the palace, not in the present, but years ago. In a small town far from London. He had not grown up around power, or ceremony, or protection. He had grown up around responsibility. His father had been a paramedic, his mother a school teacher. And from them he learned one simple rule early in life. If someone needs help, you step forward. No hesitation, no debate, no waiting for someone else. When Elias was 12, his younger sister nearly drowned during a school trip. He still remembered the sound of water splashing, the panic screams, the frozen adults who needed seconds to react. And the moment he jumped in without thinking, he saved her. But what stayed with him wasn't pride. It was realization. Sometimes safety depends on one person choosing to act. That day shaped him, more than any training ever could. Back in the present, a junior guard approached carefully. Sir, Princess Charlotte is walking the west corridor today. Ward nodded. Routine update. but his chest tightened slightly. Not from fear. From responsibility. Because protection changes when you've seen what can happen when seconds matter. Meanwhile, Princess Charlotte sat in a quiet classroom at school. Normal lessons. Normal schedules. But something inside her had matured. Not sadness. Not fear. But awareness. The world wasn't
Let's
always
hug.
gentle.
Okay.
But it could still be kind. During art
This
class
is the
she drew
best.
again. This time. A castle. Children outside it. And many small figures standing around them. Not walls. Not weapons. Just people. Watching. Protecting. Her teacher asked quietly, "Who are they?" Charlotte smiled. "They're the people who make sure children can be children." Back at the palace. Security review meetings continued weekly now. Not because of panic. Because of progress. William had made one thing clear. We improve because we care, not because we are afraid. Captain Ward presented updated response timing data. Average reaction time reduced by 1.7 seconds. To most people that meant nothing. To protection teams, that meant everything. Later that afternoon, Ward received an unexpected message. Request for meeting. From Princess Charlotte. With parental approval, he entered a small private sitting room. William and Catherine were present. Charlotte sat holding a small notebook. Ward bowed slightly. "Your Highness." Charlotte gestured politely. "You can sit," she said seriously. William smiled faintly. Charlotte opened her notebook. Inside were questions. Not childish ones, but thoughtful ones. "Do guards ever get scared?" Ward paused, then answered honestly. "Yes." "Then why do you still stand there every day?" Ward thought carefully. "Because being brave doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It means someone else's safety matters more than your fear." Charlotte nodded slowly. Writing that down. Catherine watched quietly, seeing something important forming. Not trauma. Not fear. But understanding. Meanwhile, at the rehabilitation clinic, Adrian Hale continued therapy sessions. The anger that once defined him had faded, replaced by something harder. Accountability. He wrote apology letters daily. Not sending them yet. Just writing. Learning how to face himself first. One evening session. His therapist asked, "When did you start feeling invisible?"
Thank
Adrian
you for that
answered
warm welcome.
immediately.
Together we can make a
Childhood.
profound difference.
Then stopped, because he had never said that out loud before. Back at the palace, Charlotte visited the gardens again. First time since the incident. Security tighter. But invisible. Just as promised. She stood near the fountain quietly. Captain Ward positioned at distance. Watching. Not intruding. Charlotte tossed a small coin into the fountain. Not wishing for something. Just marking a moment. Then she looked toward Ward. And gave a small nod. Not royal. Not formal. Just human. That night, William spoke privately with Ward. "You did more than your duty that day." Ward shook his head slightly. "I did exactly my duty, sir." William smiled. "That is why you are here." Across the country, public interest slowly shifted from scandal to inspiration. Stories about protection teams. Stories about emotional recovery. Stories about strength after fear. Because the public didn't want drama anymore. They wanted reassurance. And reassurance comes from quiet strength. Weeks passed. Life stabilized. But something new began quietly. Charlotte asked if she could help create a program. Safe spaces for children at public events. Not because she felt weak. Because she wanted others to feel safe. The idea spread quickly. Charity partners supported it immediately. Security experts volunteered consultation. Because sometimes, the strongest leaders begin by asking how to protect others. Captain Ward watched the announcement from a staff monitor. And for the first time in years, he felt something beyond duty. Pride. Not for himself. For her. Because he realized something powerful. Protection doesn't just stop danger. Sometimes it creates future protectors. And as night settled over the palace again, guards rotated shifts. Lights dimmed. Gardens rested. But something invisible had changed forever. Not fear. Not tension. But purpose. Because that day in the garden didn't just test security, it tested who they all chose to become afterward. When
Ladies
courage
and gentlemen,
finds
we
its
face a
voice,
critical challenge that
autumn
demands our
arrived
immediate
quietly
and
over
unified
London.
response. Together,
Leaves turned
we will
gold
overcome
along
this.
palace walkways. Morning air carried a crisp calmness. The gardens, once the place of fear, now held something new. Renewal. Preparation was underway for a major charity event. Not just another royal appearance. Something different. Something meaningful. Princess Charlotte stood in front of a mirror inside her private dressing room. Not nervous, but thoughtful. Today would be her first time speaking publicly since the garden incident. And it wasn't about explaining what happened. It was about helping other children feel strong. Catherine adjusted Charlotte's collar gently. "You don't have to be perfect," she said softly. Charlotte nodded. "I just have to be honest." Catherine smiled. "Exactly right." Downstairs, security teams finalized positions. Captain Elias Ward reviewed final perimeter reports. Everything normal. Everything controlled. But today felt different. Because today wasn't about preventing danger. It was about supporting courage. The event was called the Children's Safety and Confidence Initiative, a program designed to help schools and public venues create safer, more emotionally supportive spaces for young people. And it was Charlotte's idea. Guests filled the palace conference hall. Teachers, child psychologists, community leaders, charity representatives, and media, carefully limited, carefully briefed. Prince William opened the event, speaking about responsibility, about learning from difficult moments, about protecting future generations not just physically, but emotionally. Then, he introduced Charlotte. The room became very quiet. Not dramatic quiet. Respectful quiet. Charlotte stepped to the podium. Small hands resting carefully on each side. She took a breath, looked at her parents, then spoke. "Sometimes," she said, voice steady, "children get scared when something unexpected happens." Pause. "But being scared doesn't mean you are weak." The room leaned forward, listening. "I learned that when something bad happens, it is very important that adults listen to children." She swallowed once, then continued. "And it is also important that children know they can speak." Catherine wiped a tear quietly. William's jaw tightened, proud beyond words. Charlotte continued. "There are many people whose job is to keep children safe." She glanced briefly toward the security section, where Captain Ward stood. So, professional, but deeply moved. But safety is also about kindness. About noticing when someone feels scared. About helping each other. Applause began softly, then grew. Not loud, but powerful. Charlotte finished simply. "I hope all children feel safe where they live, learn, and play. Because children should be able to be happy." Standing ovation. Not for royalty. For honesty. Later, media coverage spread worldwide. But not as scandal. As inspiration. Headlines read, "Young Princess launches Global Child Safety Program. Royal Family champions emotional well-being for children. Strength through kindness. A royal message." School. Charlotte returned to normal lessons. But something had changed. Other children approached her more easily. Not because she was royal. Because she had spoken like one of them. One classmate whispered one afternoon, "I get nervous at big events too." Charlotte smiled. "Me too." Back at the palace, letters poured in again. From schools. From parents. From children. Some just said, "Thank you for talking." Meanwhile, at the rehabilitation clinic, Adrian Hale watched the speech recording. Not out of curiosity. Out of something deeper. Regret. And hope. Because hearing Charlotte speak without anger, without blame, changed something inside him. In therapy he finally said, "I want to make things right. Not erase the past, but build something better from it." Weeks later, Charlotte visited the first official Safe Spaces school program launch. She met children, listened more than she spoke, asked what made them feel safe, and wrote everything down. Because leadership starts with listening. Captain Ward watched from distance as always. But something had changed for him too. He realized protection wasn't just about stopping danger. It was about helping people grow strong enough to face the world. One afternoon, Charlotte approached him again. Less formal now. More confident. "Captain Ward?" "Yes, Your Highness." "Do you think I help people today?" Ward paused, then answered honestly. "Yes. You helped many people today." Charlotte smiled. Not big, but proud. That night, William and Catherine walked through the garden together. The fountain lights reflected softly on water. "I think she's stronger now," Catherine said. William nodded. She was always strong. Above them, guards stood watch. Silent, steady, unseen, but present. Because protection isn't just about moments of crisis. It's about giving people the confidence to live without fear. And across the country, schools began adopting safe space programs. Event organizers added child comfort zones. Security teams received emotional awareness training. Because sometimes, the strongest change begins with one honest voice. And that voice belonged to an 8-year-old girl, who chose courage over fear. The legacy of protection. Winter arrived slowly over London. The palace gardens transformed under soft frost, each branch outlined in silver. The fountain, once the place where fear briefly lived, now flowed beneath winter lights, calm and steady. Time had passed. Not enough to forget, but enough to grow. Inside Buckingham Palace, preparations were underway for something unprecedented. Not a celebration, not a diplomatic event, but a ceremony. A ceremony dedicated to those who protect others. The event would be called the Order of Guardianship, an annual recognition honoring individuals who dedicate their lives to protecting children and vulnerable communities. And though many advisors had helped shape it, the original inspiration came from one small voice. Princess Charlotte stood beside her window that morning, watching snow begin to fall. Soft, quiet, peaceful. She held a folder, her final speech notes for the ceremony. But unlike before, she wasn't nervous. She felt ready. Catherine entered quietly. "You've grown this year," she said softly. Charlotte smiled. "I think I just learned more." Catherine kissed her forehead. "That is what growing really means." Downstairs, guests began arriving. Security presence was strong, but calm and welcoming. Captain Elias Ward reviewed final positioning. Another normal duty day. Except today he was listed in the ceremony program. And he still wasn't comfortable with that. Because he never saw himself as a hero.
Thank you all so much.
Just someone doing a job.
Your support means
The grand
the
hall
world.
filled slowly. Military representatives, emergency responders, child protection workers, teachers, security teams from across the country, and families they had helped protect. Prince William opened the ceremony, speaking not as future king, but as a father. "Protection," he said, "is one of the purest forms of service. It asks nothing in return, only readiness, discipline, and compassion." Then he introduced Charlotte. She walked confidently to the stage, not rushing, not hesitating, just steady. She began simply. "When I was younger," she said, "I thought protection meant walls and guards and rules." Pause. "Now I know it also means kindness, and paying attention, and helping people feel safe enough to be themselves." The room remained completely still. Listening. Charlotte continued. "Sometimes people who protect others never get thanked. They stand quietly. They watch carefully. They act quickly when needed. But they never ask for recognition." She turned slightly, looking toward the security section. "And today we want to say thank you." Applause began slowly, then grew stronger. Next came the awards presentations. First responders, school safety leaders, child crisis counselors. The final recognition. "The First Royal Order of Guardianship, special recognition," William announced. "For exceptional service, unwavering dedication, and decisive action in protecting a child under threat." Captain Elias Ward. For a moment, Ward didn't move. Not from fear. From disbelief. The audience stood as he walked to the stage. Step steady. Measured. Professional. William shook his hand firmly. Not just as a prince. As a father thanking someone who protected his child. Charlotte handed him the medal. And said quietly, only for him to hear, "Thank you for helping me feel brave again." Ward swallowed hard. And nodded. Because some moments don't need speeches. After the ceremony, guests gathered in reception halls. Media coverage spread globally again. But this time, the story wasn't about fear. It was about gratitude. Meanwhile, in a private viewing room, Adrian Hale watched the ceremony broadcast. Tears in his eyes. Not from shame anymore. From realization. Because seeing the ripple effect of one terrible decision, and how others turned it into something good, changed him permanently. Months later, Adrian would quietly begin working with youth counseling programs. Never publicly connected to the royal family again, but working quietly to help children who felt invisible. Because redemption doesn't always happen in public. Sometimes it happens in daily choices. Back at the palace, life continued. School days, family dinners, charity visits, normal childhood moments. One evening, Charlotte walked past the East Garden alone, with guards respectfully distant. She stopped near the fountain. Water glowing under evening lights. Peaceful. Steady. She dropped a small silver token into the water. Not wishing for safety anymore, but wishing for strength. For herself. For others. Behind her, Captain Ward stood watch. Like always, like he always would. Because protection isn't just about stopping danger. It's about standing between fear and hope. Until hope becomes stronger. Years later, the order of guardianship would grow, expanding internationally, helping thousands of schools and public spaces become safer for children. And it would always trace back to one moment, one decision, one act of protection, and one young girl choosing courage. On the final winter night of that year, the palace lights glowed warm against falling snow. Inside, laughter echoed through family halls. Outside, guards rotated shifts silently, steady, unseen, but always there. Because some promises don't fade. They become legacy. And that legacy would live on in every child who learned. You are worth protecting. You are allowed to feel safe. And you are stronger than you think. The end.